you need to get the message out there that you can solve a specific problem, and you need people to buy into that and actually be prepared to buy from you. And once you get a handle on that problem, the next problem is, well, now that I've seen to the demand side, now I need to up the ante on my supply side. So now I need to make sure that I can serve. How am I going to scale all of this?
Welcome to the Super Clinic Project Podcast, where we take regular clinic owners and turn them into cash-based multimillionaire entrepreneurs. Warning, if you're a doctor who listens to this podcast regularly, you will make millions of dollars. Do not listen to this podcast unless you want to be a successful clinic owner who helps thousands of patients achieve their health goals and adds more money than you can imagine to your bank account. You've been warned.
Welcome to episode 108 of the Super Clinic Project Podcast, where we give you the exact tactics, strategies, and mindsets that you need to fulfill your destiny by helping thousands of people in your community and dominating your market and your life. I'm one of your hosts, Rory Morgan. I'm here along with Jennifer Gligoric and Tracy Sundkvist. And by the end of today's episode, you are going to have very clear answers to the three biggest challenges and complaints that clinic owners deal with in business. These are the biggest questions that we get asked every single day when we are speaking to clinic owners. And I'm going to give you clear answers to what's going on. So before we get into the content, I need to ask you a favor. We are giving you all of this information for free. You can listen for free, Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcasts. You're watching us on YouTube, no charge, right? But that's a misunderstanding. Actually, there is a charge. You need to do something for us. In order to pay for the value that we're giving you, it is your duty to send this podcast to 5 friends. You need to go send this to people who need this information because it's going to help them. We're in a time in history right now as we're recording this where our health systems are changing. In North America here in the United States, there's a new person in charge of our health services. RFK is making massive changes. And if chiropractors, if small medical businesses, if people who are actually out there trying to help people get their hands on this information, it will change the face of healthcare in the United States. And as the United States is the leader in world culture, that's going to trickle down to everyone else. And so people need to hear about this. So since we're giving this to you for free, please do your job and pay the fee. The fee is to tell your friends to send this podcast to people. And you can go to the website, superclinicproject.com, and there is a button there where you can share the podcast. And you can put someone's email in and you can tell them to listen to the podcast. That makes it very easy for you. All right? So pause the podcast and go do that. Pay the fee. There's a small fee due. All right. Now let's jump into the episode. I'm going to turn it over to, I don't know, Tracy, do you want to take it from here as we kind of dig into these questions?
Thanks, Rory. I think one of the all-time biggest, baddest question that I get faced with as a practice growth manager is, I've tried 7 different marketing agencies. Why can't they get me reliable, consistent results?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, I've even heard somebody tell me 21 agencies. And another way that people will say this exact same thing is, I just want my marketing to work, right? I just want it to work, right? And I believe the root of this is a misunderstanding of what marketing is. And what we could do is we could spend 5 hours explaining every detail of what marketing actually is. But I think to try to simplify it the best I can is because the idea of an agency was never meant to be the end-all be-all for getting you new patients. The agency business model has only in very recent times gone from serving huge Fortune 500 companies down to then mid-market companies, and now only recently have agencies begun serving small businesses. And the reason an agency model works so well for large businesses is because large businesses have their own strategy. They have already figured out exactly why their product is different and better. They have already figured out what their clients' respond to and what they don't respond to. They've figured out all of these hard challenges. They've figured out what their culture is going to be. They've figured out what the interactions with their clients are going to be, what they're not going to be. And then it makes it very easy to go out and hire an agency and say, hey, here's who we are. Can you create some creative ads that drive more awareness and traffic to us, right? And the agency can be like, okay, yeah, I'll use my creativity and I'll make some cool stuff and we'll make you seem unique and different. But they've got all of the hard stuff already figured out. What the small business owner doesn't understand is that marketing quite literally is your entire business. Right. So marketing has different functions. But if you think about it, right, when somebody uses the restroom in your clinic, that's marketing. Why? Because someone from your marketplace is interacting with your business. When somebody gets greeted at the front door in your clinic, that's marketing because someone from your marketplace is interacting with your business, right? And if you go actually study marketing, if you were to take marketing in college, you would realize that when you learn marketing, they're actually teaching you about people strategy. How do your people show up, right? They're going to teach you about product packaging and how do you actually package up your services such that it appears in a certain way to the client, right? They're going to teach you about differentiators. They're going to teach you about all of these things. So just to bring it back to what I was saying, all of your business is marketing. There's 4 marketing functions. There's 4 different functions, and these functions comprise your entire business. So function number 1 is lead generation and awareness. You have to get people to be aware of you and then get those people to express interest in saying, hey, I'm interested in potentially doing business with you. Function number 2 is sales. It's lead conversion. So you have to take those people who are interested and you have to actually convert them into someone who's a paying patient, right? Both of those are marketing. Sales is not separate from marketing. It's a part of your marketing system. The next function is fulfillment. You have to actually deliver the thing that you promised in your sales process. And the fourth function is retention, resell, upsell, referral. How do you keep those people long term and keep delivering value such that they want to keep paying you, right? And so what small business owners do is they think, oh, I don't have any responsibility to think about my marketing. I don't have to know what my strategy is. I don't have to think about my packaging. I don't have to think about how I create promotions. I don't have to think about how I'm attracting people or how I'm differentiating myself. What they do is they never think about their business as a marketing machine, and they just take the one function, the one little function that is only the first of 4, and they say that's what marketing is, and then they try to get an agency to go do their marketing for them. When in fact, as a CEO, you actually have to be in control of your marketing strategy. And yeah, sure, you can hire an agency to place ads for you, but those ads have to be based on your strategy that you created, the message that you have ownership of, right? The packaging that you have ownership of, the people strategy that you have. All of those things. Does that make sense? Is there anything that you want to add to that?
I would say that in a nutshell, if you don't have a consistent system throughout your business and a real business plan, then when you expect a marketing agency to do this, you're giving away part of your business to someone who has no shareholder responsibility to it whatsoever. They're going to do the best that they can, but they're not in control of it. You're giving up this control and yet not empowering them, right? Because you're the one who needs to make all these very important decisions. Like, what is our patient journey going to be? How do I want the patients to feel throughout this entire process? Because everything you do is part of the marketing of it. So if there's no system in place, if your entire staff isn't on board with that system, you're never going to get consistent results because you're at the whim of just the newest group that's now taking over one of the most core aspects of what you should be doing as an owner of your small business.
Yeah, I mean, another way to think about it is it's like, well, then how come it worked for a little while? Right. Well, that's because you hired an agency and that agency has one tactic, right? They don't have a holistic strategy. They aren't thinking about your entire marketing, approach. They're not thinking about your people strategy. They're not they happen to have one tactic. And that one tactic is, in fact, useful, right? But because you don't own your strategy, right? Like what we teach people to do is once you have your strategy, you should then be able to create hundreds and hundreds of ads that match that strategy, right? And so you don't just have one thing that you can implement. You can implement that strategy through hundreds of ads, and you can implement that same strategy through in-person events, and you can implement that same strategy through speaking engagements. You can implement that strategy through a referral campaign, right? You can implement that through joint ventures. You have a strategy, right? And you now have a million tactics that you can implement into the market, right? And so like agencies are not designed to be what you want them to do.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Right,
That's not
exactly.
a function they're supposed to fill. So when you get down, or when our clients get down on agencies, I just think, okay, well, we need to rethink this entire model. I think one of the things that is delightful for me is when clients in our launch program, where we give the practice owners all the tools they need to get on top of their new patient acquisition strategy. One of the things that they'll do in the beginning is that they will come and say, well, it's not working. The ads aren't working. And of course, what I delight in is to say, okay, well, let's just break that down for a moment, because what are you controlling in the processes we've given you so that you can turn somebody's interest into a patient that is going to pay you a lot of money to solve their problem? And when we actually look at what was that nurturing process like? How are they responding to people calling in to confirm their appointments? What are the videos going out to prime them and prepare them and create that familiarity before they even show up for their first appointment? And then what is the process that they're taking these leads through to help them think about their problem and understand just the significance of the impact that this has in their life, and therefore being able to communicate that value, take away that barrier to the buying decision and get them to sign up. So as soon as we flip it and we start to reflect that what you do closes patients, it's not your ads. It's like initially they hate it, but when they learn how to do it, it is the most liberating control that they will have.
Yes, because it is a corporate strategy, and it is the education and the knowledge that really was kind of gatekept in these massive multi-million-dollar corporations for a long time, right? If you were just a local small business, you would have the yellow pages, and the people would naturally just come to you because you were the only game in town among a couple. You know, advertising has changed, marketing has changed. Post-COVID is a completely different world. We get a lot of people who said, why isn't this working like it used to? This used to work. This worked for 20 years. It's not working now. And it's because we have a very different society that's a lot more savvy. There's a lot more competition. And the online marketplace is, the marketplace, the town square, which we've talked about in prior episodes, now is a different digital space. And it's a different way to get to people. But once you learn it, once you actually have this strategy and you get that knowledge that used to be gatekept, and you're able to employ it on your level, wherever your small business is, then you're able to compete. And it's this huge aha moment.
100%.
Are we done with this one?
I think we've hit that pretty well.
Okay. Well, the next question I had for you was, why should I know how to sell? I run a medical practice, or I'm not a salesperson. I am a doctor. Why do I have to do this? We get this a lot from clients.
Yeah. And it's so important. And there are so many different thoughts that I have about how to approach this, because really what it ultimately gets down to is your belief system about yourself, right? What do you believe about the reality of the way the world actually works? And we want to say, oh, you know, I'm not a salesman and I shouldn't have to sell. But the reality of how reality actually functions is everybody is being sold to constantly by somebody else. So if you're not going to learn how to communicate and persuade and to sell, somebody else is going to persuade and sell your potential patients on their thing, right?
I think that I'm going to add something. I think if you're a medical professional, when I talk to them, I'm like, so you're a doctor. What are you really here to? I'm really here to help people. And what do you want to do? And they'll tell me something that is very heart-centered about wanting to get people out of pain or wanting to help women in their sexual health, whatever the clinic that they're doing, they have a really strong desire to help their patients get to a better healthcare outcome, right? And so I say, well, then stop thinking of it as sales, think of it as having better conversations so that you can bring your value. They can understand where you're coming from, and then they trust you to be the clinician or the healthcare professional that gets them to their health goal. That at the end of the day, sales professionals are just incredible communicators, but number one, they're good listeners and they're professional. They're a professional consultant in this process to find out where that pain point is. And if they have a solution that can get this person out of wherever their pain point is to where they really want to be or what product they really want, then they build that value so that they can make that natural decision. And we need to change our mindset. It is, to me, it is more of a mindset issue than anything. I don't know. Do you feel the same way, Tracy? Or
I agree with you 100%. I think when any specialist, I mean, whether you're an IT specialist or whether you're a plumber, when you're focused on a technical skill, the automatic assumption is that sales is like a secondhand car salesman or insurance salesman. It's pushy, it's manipulative, it's kind of in your face. And when we position what we feel is a very solid sales process, most of the time they just can't believe that what the scripts that we are sharing, they are not pushy at all. We don't want you to sell. We don't want you to sell in the hardcore way that you're expecting it to sound like. We want to set you up to assist that patient to understand what is at the heart of the issue that they're dealing with and get more insight into how important it is for them to solve that problem and achieve long-term health goals.
Yeah.
Some of the questions we ask are pretty pointed. And if you just read it black and white and go, ooh, I don't know if I could say that, right? That seems harsh to me. Like, why wouldn't you want to do this, right? Well, it depends on how you say it too, right? And it depends on context. So once you get the framework down and you have an actual strategy, and you understand where you're leading the patient to, because you as a professional, you already know they're here. If they've come here, either they qualify for what I can do, they're a candidate for whatever procedure or help I'm going to give them. And I know I can get them in my clinical expertise to the healthcare outcome that they need. If you know that, and then as you're asking them, then why wouldn't you be an advocate for them and challenge them on it? Ask them, well, what's your plan? If we don't do this today and it's getting worse, then what's your plan? That would be any friend, anyone who actually cares about someone. If they told you this is affecting me every day and I need it to get done, why wouldn't you ask them that? Right? We need to be better friends and advocates. And if you approach it like that, it's not really sales. It's just getting them to to the help they need.
Yeah. So I think I have 2 or 3 thoughts to wrap this one up based on what you guys are saying. Number one is what you were saying, Jennifer, like sales isn't used car salesmanship. Sales is service, right? If you don't learn how to communicate and shift someone's belief system, mainstream medicine and the insurance companies and the mainstream media are going to use those communication skills to persuade someone to get on prescription drugs and to, get surgery, right? If you aren't willing to learn those communication skills, I can guarantee you that there are some billion-dollar companies that are using those communication skills on your potential patients. So that would be number one, is sales is service. Number two is the way that you were saying that, giving that example of, actually how you say something is, if you treat sales like I'm following a script, then it's going to feel pretty rote. It's going to feel pretty impersonal, right? Like you don't really care about the person. But if you will actually commit to learning your script, memorizing your script, understanding why this question is here, and what type of answer am I actually looking for, right? And actually, and do the work to really become a professional with your scripting process, then you can look at the human being in front of you and know that when you ask them, okay, well, if this is getting worse and you can see that it's only going to get worse, if you don't do this, what is your plan? You're looking a human being in the eyes and you're helping them have a realization, right? Because remember, we've talked about in other episodes, most people don't lead their lives, they accept their life. And so what you're doing when you can communicate to someone like a friend is you're helping them break that cycle of just accepting their life, right? When they're like, oh, I don't know, I guess I'll just deal with this for the rest of my life. You're all of a sudden breaking that pattern and basically saying like, hey man, are you going to lead your life or are you just going to accept a less than 100% quality of life, right?
But they'll be forced to say, well, I was just hoping it would get better.
Right.
Do you actually believe that's true? No.
Right. Exactly.
And they have to say it out loud. And then, then they can have a breakthrough.
Yeah. And so if you will be professional about learning the skills, then you don't have to be like in your mind being like, oh my gosh, I have to say this word and this word. No, you're talking to a human being in front of you and you care about that human. Yeah. And then the third piece that I was going to mention, let's see, what was it that I was going to say? Maybe I forgot what it was, but I think that those are two. So brain fart. But I did have three, so maybe we'll make
No, we had another question. I think Tracy.
Yeah, we get Rory, when you remember it, and one of us will be speaking when you remember it, and then you can kind of circle back to this one. But for now, let's move to another very common question, and that would be, we'll hear versions of, I keep hitting that $1 million practice mark, so I keep getting to that 83K and I can hit it for a month or two, but I can't sustain it. I just don't seem able to consistently grow or scale my practice and achieve that next level. So why is that?
Such an important question. I think I can answer this one relatively simply, which is because a business is actually its own organism, right? So organisms have different life stages, right? So like, you have like the egg, and then the egg becomes a pupa, and then and I might get my biology stuff wrong here, right? But then it I guess it would maybe like hatch into like a caterpillar, and then the caterpillar goes into a cocoon, and then the cocoon opens up into a butterfly, right? And at each stage, the business needs different things. So it turns out that these things are extremely well documented and extremely well researched, right? Like Harvard Business Review has studied this. MIT has studied this. We know that businesses have life stages. And one of the reasons that first-time entrepreneurs fail at 90%, but then once it's your second, third, fourth try, you're way, way, way more likely to succeed. And I don't know the exact percentage. It's like 70 or 80% of second and third time entrepreneurs are successful. It's because they realize, oh, this is how a business is supposed to grow, right? So when you're at 0 to 10,000, your business needs something different than when it's at 50,000, and it needs something different when it's at 80,000. So that's going to be like, I need specific employees to do specific jobs at certain times. There are things that I shouldn't be worrying about in this stage, and there are things that I should be worrying about, right? No business is perfect. Every business has problems, right? Coca-Cola has problems that they are trying to solve right now, right? There are stuff that isn't working the way they want it to. But what they have to do is they have to understand, where are we at? What's going on? What are our priorities going to be? And in the growth of a small business, those things are extremely well defined, where you have to actually say, okay, I'm in this stage. I'm going to allow those other things to be problems right now. I'm not going to try to fix everything. Because I am in the stage of trying to get to 50,000 a month, I am going to work on these two things. And then when I get above 50 and I start working to try to get to 80,000 a month or 100,000 a month, I'm now going to ignore everything else. And I'm going to work on these three things, right? And so there is in our mastermind, where with Dr. Zano and Jennifer and Tracy are in there helping people. In that mastermind, we have a detailed list of the stages of business growth so that you can understand, okay, where's my business at and what do I need to do? All right. So if your goal is to become a real estate investor, well, you're going to have to build up the cash to get there, right? So you've got to get your business to 100,000 or 200,000 a month. In order to start doing that, we can show you the stages in there. So I would say that's pretty much, maybe I used too many words there, but I think that's a fairly succinct account of why, right? So people think, oh, if I just keep doing what I've been doing, but just do a little bit more of it, then I'm going to get to 1 million or I'm going to get to 1.5 million. And that's not how it actually works.
Yeah, I think that to shorten that up is you've got to accept as a business owner that your business will always be broke. Mm-hmm. And you cannot be afraid to grow and to get to the next stage. I believe fear-based thinking stops a lot of people from growing to the stage that they want to grow because they're afraid to let go of people. Maybe that staff was the staff that was going to get you to $30,000 a month, but you went 60. That is your goal. And it's always been your goal, right? Maybe it's not a month, but you need to double it. But you've come as far as you can with that staff. And that's hard. That's a tough decision to make because you love those people. You work with them every single day. You're going to have to make some changes, right? Yep. So you can't let fear of, but then it'll all go to pot. It's never all going to go to pot if you have a strategy, a plan, and systems in place. And then you just work that until you get the next one. So don't let fear stopping you from growth and become comfortable with knowing it's always going to be broken, no matter what stage you're at.
Jennifer, I really just want to add there, for every single stage of growth, it requires you to solve a specific set of problems.
Yeah.
Yep. I knew a marketing, ironically, he was a marketing guy for Coca-Cola. And what he shared with clients was that there are always going to be 4 challenges that you need to face or overcome as a business owner, practice owner. And that is, you're always going to start with cash. You're always going to move to customers. You're always going to move then to capacity, and you're always going to end up at capability. So in the beginning, if you think about it in practice growth, the first thing you need to do, it's about capital. It costs an incredible amount of money to get a practice off the ground. There's equipment, there's people, there's systems, there's processes, there's, your location. Once you solve all of the cash problems, then it becomes clients, customers, patients. You need to get the message out there that you can solve a specific problem, and you need people to buy into that and actually be prepared to buy from you. And once you get a handle on that problem, the next problem is, well, now that I've seen to the demand side, now I need to up the ante on my supply side. So now I need to make sure that I can serve 700 people in a week from there. So once you can start to do that reliably, then what happens is, well, how am I going to scale all of this? And the irony is, I think when you get to that $1 million practice, by that growth phase, you should already have a team in place. You should already have reliable income coming in. You should already have that message market fit. The next thing is the capability. So what capabilities do you need to now introduce into your practice? What areas of specialization do you need to bring inside so that you can navigate, positioning your practice into the future reliably?
Just to wrap that up, and hopefully I don't confuse anyone here, but basically, you have your cash, you have your customers, you have your capacity, and you have your capabilities, right? And that cycle of those 4 things is actually going to repeat again and again each time you go to the next growth phase, right? So if I want to go from 1 million to 3 million, I have to think through, do I have the cash to do it? Can I get the customers, right? Can I deliver to those customers? And does my team have the capability to manage all of it? Do they have the right set of skills, or do I need to hire someone who has those skills? Or do I need to get some sort of training in place for my team to acquire those skills, right? Do they have the time availability as far as capability, right? And we have to think through those 4 things at each stage, right? And then if I want to go from 3 million to 10 million, I have to rethink through those things in order to get that growth again and again and again at each stage. And I think the one thing that I'll give people, right, this is what you were saying, Tracy, for that $1 million ceiling, the biggest capability, right? In other words, there's a set of skills that are missing in your business. There's like a job function, a capability that isn't actually happening in that clinic that's trying to break through $1 million, is that at that size of business, you actually have to have a second leader in the business. There has to be a manager, right? So if you're the entrepreneur, you now have to have someone who manages the day-to-day. They're tracking the scorecards. They're making sure the numbers are there, right? And they're looking at all the details. They're crossing the T's and dotting the I's so that you can focus on being that visionary and bringing the energy to the business and doing the marketing and the sales. And most businesses at that size, they have someone who technically might theoretically be called an office manager, but they aren't actually managing anything. They aren't managing the employees. They aren't making sure that they aren't good communicators. They aren't leading meetings. They don't care about the vision of the business. It's effectively like you could hire a virtual assistant overseas to do the exact same job that they're doing for $4 or $5 an hour, but you've given them the title of office manager. And really that's all they're doing is just keeping a few things, organized. But you actually, you have to actually have a leader to do that. So I think we should wrap it up there. Guys, don't forget a few things. Number one, pay the fee for the podcast. Refer your friends, send an email, tell them you've got to listen to this podcast. 2, go to superclinicproject.com. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. Please leave us a 5-star review if you like this. If you don't like the podcast, do not leave us a bad review. You can just go somewhere else. You can send us an email and tell us why you don't like the podcast, but shame on you if you give us a bad review.
No, you can even send us a voicemail. If you go to our website, you can click on the feedback link, which is right there underneath the episode, and you can just tell us in all the glory. We will take constructive criticism. We do.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have questions that you would like us to address on this podcast, you can let us know there as well.
Please do. And if it's okay if we actually play the clip and then answer it, we would love that. Absolutely.
Totally. Yeah, that would be super fun, more interactive. So superclinicproject.com. And then from there, you can join our mastermind that I do with Dr. Zano, with Tracy, with Jennifer. We're all in there helping you grow your clinic. It's super affordable to the point that we've actually made the first 14 days for free. So take us up on that, sign up for that, and let's grow your clinic. Talk to you guys soon.
You've been listening to the Super Clinic Project podcast. If you like what you hear, subscribe and stay tuned for further episodes of the Super Clinic Project podcast.